Happy video day, guys. Christina, Brooke here, and today I'm going to be bringing you guys a new type of video. I think I want to make this into a series, and I was kind of trying to create the idea of what exactly I wanted it to be about. So as I was going through a lot of the new eyeshadow palette releases, getting ready to do Make Up Your Minds, I realized that this year has not been the year of creativity when it comes to eyeshadow palettes, which to me is not really like a huge shocker because you know what happened last year. And during the time that they were probably supposed to be creating a lot of the new launches that are supposed to come out in the beginning of the year, they were probably in a lockdown. So I'm not shocked that there isn't that many creative eyeshadow palettes being released, but I don't feel like there's many things that are like super exciting. I feel like the year before, when I was gonna do a Make Up Your Mind, it was like every week I was already like, oh my God, I wanna do one, I wanna do one, I wanna do one. And I felt myself constantly pushing to pull out Make Up Your Minds for you guys because there was so many new releases. This year, I don't feel that way. I wanna go through a lot of the brand new releases that released throughout the beginning of this year. So I'm gonna be telling you guys whether I think these eyeshadow palettes were total wins or total fails when it comes to the entire presentation and color selection within them. So that's what we're gonna do. Let's do a huge rundown of the eyeshadow palettes that have released in the beginning of 2021, and let's be a little judgy and let's judge them. All right, so I'm gonna go through Trend Mood because I feel like her website kind of gives me a shot of like everything at once. So I'll probably be able to see like most of the eyeshadow palettes that did release in 2021. All right, let's start with this one because this one says December 30th, but it actually did launch in January. So it was the new Christian Dior limited edition eyeshadow palettes. This is the Trio Oblique eyeshadow palettes, okay? So these were around $49 or something like that. I like the look of these. However, the color selection, I was not the biggest fan of. There's one here that I like a little bit more than the other one. The other one is just like, you know, but one of them does look pretty. I do know that these palettes fell short when it came to formula. There's a few reviews of these already up that they kind of weren't that great. And if you really look at the price point versus what you're really getting in these shadow palettes, there's really only 3 colors. You are getting like a pretty design that literally is going to wipe away once you use it. Do I think that this was very innovative? I really don't. There's a part of it that's pretty, and then there's a part of it that's just like, come on, you know, for that price point, I want more. So then e.l.f. releases this mint collection. It's the Mint Melt eyeshadow. I don't love this color story. It's not really my color story. However, looking at it, it's cute. It's cute. I would say that if you are into wanting to do like one of these mint looking lids that I have seen going around, that I have seen for quite a while now, for $4, I think that they actually did something at least a little different. I don't know about the formula of these. I do know some people love their bite-sized palettes, but when it comes to overall design, overall everything of this one, I would say that this was a win. For a $4 eyeshadow palette, you know, and the creativity is at least somewhat there, you're gonna say, okay, good. Good for you. Then BH Cosmetics releases this palette called the Birthstone Collection, and it's a January palette. This is the Garnet palette for January. And I mean, I get it. Maybe it's because it's the birthstone, but for $9, I wouldn't want this. The colorway that they have here, in my opinion, is just not attractive. They have a hot pink in there with a reddish tone. Then they also have like a gray shimmer in there and a brown, and I'm going, oh my goodness. I understand if you want to do something based off of birthstones and that's like your thing, but at least make it attractive. Also, do not like this packaging. The packaging was just like, what did you guys think? Yes, the price tag is really cheap, but that doesn't mean that you want like nothing for, you know, you just saw an e.l.f. palette that was $4 that I feel like they did go a little bit above and beyond to try to come up with something at least different. This is generic and boring, and the colors are just not, they just don't mix together, so I'm gonna say that this one was a total fail. Then Milani actually comes out with the Gilded Tiara eyeshadow palette for $19.99. I do think that the price tag here is a little bit on the higher end of the market when it comes to drugstore makeup. But that being said, Milani has a decent formula. I have tried a few of their palettes in the past and I have liked them. So I was looking at this and I'm going, okay, now this looks interesting. I don't think it's like revolutionary or anything like super out of this world, but I think for drugstore makeup, this is very cool. I feel like when you look at the drugstore makeup, especially eyeshadow palettes at the drugstore, they keep things very easy because they feel like people are just gonna buy easy makeup at the drugstore, and sometimes they're not very creative. I feel like Milani brought creativity here. I like this. I think this was a total win. So then we go to Colourpop and what they released, which I have to admit, guys, like I still think that this was an interesting launch from Colourpop. Their Love Struck 5-pan palette collection. They came in a bunch of different tones, and I do think that this was a nice start to the new year for Colourpop. After this, Colourpop went chaotic and they keep on releasing things, but this was a nice start. And I actually was thinking, wow, you know, this is cool. It looks a little creative, a little different. They have a different format here. A few of you guys have pointed out for $10, you're only getting 5 shades, and that in their larger palettes, you can get like a lot more shades for $12, and you're right. Now, when it came to color stories though, I do think that they put some time here into coming up with nice color stories. I think marketing wise, this did call attention to people. People were kind of interested in this. I did see a lot of people buy it. So I think it was a total win for Colourpop. All right, so then Melt Cosmetics releases their Blueprint palette, which was another interesting palette. It did come with 8 different colors in it. The reason for me that this didn't call my attention is because I don't like blue, as I'm wearing blue on my lids. But today's look, I was playing with the Angelica and Viste and Kaleidos palette that I'm gonna have it up on Instagram, this look, and the blue's the only color I hadn't played with yet. I'm not a huge fan of blue. I think it's a cool color. It's just not my favorite color to wear on the lid. So looking at this palette, this is just like not my color story. But in general, if I look at it like just in general, I think it was a pretty palette. It probably called attention. The only thing is that I see that there's a lot of shimmers in this. Like, it's a very shimmery eyeshadow palette, and it looks like there was only 2 mattes in it from this image, and the 2 mattes are a really deep blue and a deep red. That's very hard to work with. All right, so then Tarte releases this new palette. It's the Tarte Amazonian Clay. This is the Juicy palette. You guys know I did pick this one up. This was one that actually interested me. At first, when I first saw it, I was kind of a little bit like, oh, it's a little boring. You know, nobody's gonna want to see this. But let me tell you, this was a win for Tarte because Tarte kind of tapped into the natural makeup and what people are wearing right now. And I do feel like this attracted a lot of people's attention. I didn't pick it up, and after my Make Up Your Mind, I had people asking me to please pick it up. And that video got a lot of views. I feel like a lot of people actually were more interested in this palette than a lot of people thought they would be. I love the packaging. I love the pale pink. And even though it didn't seem like it would be an exciting palette, I do think that a lot of people ended up being very excited for it. Okay, so then Morphe releases this very vibrant palette, the 35S Sweet Oasis Artistry palette. It was actually kind of vibrant and colorful for Morphe. I'm so used to Morphe doing like specific color stories that this was different for them. But I just honestly just feel like for Morphe, it's more about like people kind of being over Morphe than I am about them even looking at the color stories anymore. For this palette in specific, I feel like it could have been condensed to a smaller palette and still worked. I also don't think that people were looking for this kind of palette at the time that this was released, so I think that this might have been a total fail for Morphe. All right, so then Juvia's Place actually released a very pretty palette. This one I actually really liked, and I don't remember why I didn't pick this up. I think it was just timing wasn't gonna work into my schedule. It's a very pretty color story. I think maybe what kind of turned me off was those deeper red tones. For my skin tone was gonna be a little bit too much for me right now, but I do love the top shades. The top shades are really, really pretty. I think this might have been a win for Juvia's Place. Talk about another Colourpop one, the Off Melrose palette. Now, this is funny because when I saw this at Ulta, I actually thought that's a pretty palette from Colourpop. I think that some people would have liked this, but I think Colourpop messed themselves up because I think Colourpop released too many things, too many people got confused, and I think they stopped buying a lot of this stuff. People are getting overwhelmed with too many eyeshadow palettes and they're not thinking that much about makeup that much right now. So you really need to get their attention, like Kaleidos did with the Angelica Naviste collaboration. The Club Nebula, I think, was a beautiful palette. It's what I have on my eyes, and you guys have been asking for looks, so there is some on Instagram already, but I think that this at least was something different. It is color and it was vibrant, and I do think that people aren't looking that much for color, but because it stands out on your timeline, because it was something different, because the packaging, because of the theme, because of everything put together, I think it was a total win for Kaleidos. Colourpop then did something different, and they did end up doing the Animal Crossing collab. I think that was smart for them, because now that I hear Animal Crossing is like a very popular video game, and I think that the little quads that they did was cute. It wasn't as expensive, so you know, you have more chances of a lot of people wanting to pick a lot of them up, and there's a bunch of different colors. The colorways were cute. I think this was a win for Colourpop. Okay, so then Natasha Denona releases the Valentine's collection, and this was such a win for her. I love the mini and I love the colorways that she used. So this actually attracted my attention. Now the reason that it attracts my attention more is because Natasha always does this. She gets a bigger palette and she does a mini of it. So we all know that there's a lot of minis coming, which I know of one that's coming very, very soon in my 1 year, 1 brand update for February. I'm going to be talking about that. But there's a lot of minis coming. So we knew that eventually the big Love palette was going to have a mini. So yeah, this is a perfect mini to play off of the mini of the big Love. So I thought that that was really cute. I'm going to skip over some of these Colourpop ones because it's too much. Pat McGrath releases something very similar to the Natasha Denona one. Now, obviously this was not on purpose, but she released her Eternal Eden palette and her big Divine Rose, again, Divine Rose 2. I don't feel as strongly of this collection as I did of the Natasha Denona one, even though the colorways are similar. And the reason is because Pat McGrath keeps doing this color story. Natasha Denona always does different color stories. Yeah, she makes minis of big palettes, but she doesn't consistently do the same color story. And I feel like Pat McGrath has gotten into this thing of doing the Divine Rose a million times, but she's not changing the color story, which is the part that kind of gets me like, come on, change the color story. But I think that it was a fail in the sense that a lot of people are starting to get annoyed with the same color story. So then Nars releases the Uninhibited eyeshadow palette. I'm gonna be honest, guys, it looks just like a lot of the NARS palettes. It didn't excite me. I will say the packaging is awesome. Like, I think they did an amazing job with the packaging. It's so cool looking. So there's parts that are great, and then there's a part that was just like, duh, you know, and it's just like NARS has this specific colorway that they like to use a lot. And it's not that I don't like this colorway, I do. It's just I see it so much that you kind of get bored, you know, with NARS. Now, if another brand released this, let's say Natasha Denona released this colorway, I might be excited because she doesn't do it often. But since NARS does it often, you want to see something different, because if you own a NARS palette, you want a different NARS palette. So then Shantikai releases this butterfly collection. I love the packaging of this, but their quads are just so expensive though, guys. Like, they're so expensive. I feel like for the price tag, I want to do a lot more with my makeup. I want to see a little bit more from Shantikai. I think Shantikai has a lot to give, and I don't feel like they have given it 100% with the eyeshadow products yet, because I haven't seen one that I'm like, yes, I'm going to pay that price tag. The packaging is beautiful. The quad is okay, but there's mattes missing. I want some mattes, you know, so maybe that's the problem. Okay, so Dominique Cosmetics releases their Transition palette. Now, I'm gonna be honest with you, I think that that's very cool. It's a $48 palette. The problem is that since Makeup by Mario just did almost the same exact thing in like December, I feel like a lot of people bought the Makeup by Mario one, and if you did, you don't really need another Transition palette. It's good for her brand because her brand doesn't have one. So if you really love her formula, it's a great thing to have, but it came quickly after another brand that launched at Sephora and had a big deal about their transitional palette, did a lot of PR, just came out. So I think that for that reason, maybe it wasn't like a huge standout product for her brand, but I do think it's nice. So I think it's a win in the long run, because I do think people might actually like this and be like, oh, that's a nice palette to have. So then we finally get to something that I found to be interesting. Urban Decay launches the Wild West palette. Now the Wild West palette, I know that it may not be the most unique, but it's different. It was something different on the timeline. I feel like between the packaging was very well thought out. I love the snake. I love the colors of the snake. I love that the packaging matches really well with what's inside. The brush is really nice. And I thought that this was a huge win for Urban Decay. They created a product that stood out from all of the other makeup products. I feel like people talked about this because it was cool. It was different. It is very similar to the Eau Jaclyn Hill Morphe palette. If you guys have that one, if you haven't seen my Make Up Your Mind, very similar colors, but that palette was released a few years back already. So, you know, these kind of color stories recycle themselves, so I'm okay with it. I think it's a beautiful palette. The formula is really cool too, so that's also a plus. Then just recently, KKW Beauty releases 2 new palettes. One is the honey, one is the mauve. I'll be honest, both of them are pretty. Both of them are just, you know, they're easy palettes, easy to use. I think that the issue here is that people right now want to spend their money on stuff that they really want or something that's so different. So the idea of like throwing a lot of palettes out at the same time, I think that was like very 2 years ago. And I feel like launching 2 palettes at the same time, one honey theme, one mauve theme, might have been much. It might have been a little bit of a fail for them. I think that maybe one should have launched now and then waited a little bit for the other one. So then Visiart actually released a palette that I think was cool. It's called the Paris Love Letter. It was a pretty palette. I'm not interested in picking this one up either. I do think that there was interesting colors in it, but it was like one of those palettes that like it was on its way up and then just got held back a little bit. But then you have something like the Too Faced launch that's coming out, the Teddy Bear. I feel like a lot of people are going to be excited for this one. I think the inside of this palette looks like amazing, but I do love that it looks like it has 2 cheek products in it, or products that you can use on the cheek. I bet you some of the highlights you could probably use on the face. I like that it's neutral theme, but at the same time they have a little bit of pops of pinks in here. I think this is going to be a good palette for Too Faced. There was pretty much palettes that released, but not anything compared to last year. Last year at this time, there was so many palettes released. What do you guys think? There was like a few good ones, but not like a lot that I was like, yes, 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 you know? So if you guys like this kind of video, you guys want me to keep on dissecting more eyeshadow palettes and telling you guys whether I think that they were total wins or total fails, let me know and we'll do another one of these at the end of March, and maybe we'll do it monthly if you guys are interested. So leave me those comments. I hope you guys enjoyed, and of course, if there's anything you guys want me to change in this video to make it into a series for you guys, leave me your comments of what you want me to change, how you want me to change it. But thanks so much for watching. If you enjoyed, subscribe, hit the like button, and I will talk with you guys later.